Greetings, everyone. Welcome, salutations, and all that good stuff. I am Fulcrum. Welcome to Secret Transmissions. I already see that we have we got Julie, we got Pat in the chat. Who else is out there? Let me know. It's nice to see a bunch of familiar names and new names too when that happens. If you were around a couple weeks ago, we had like technical things going on, but I think this one's gonna work. I've been testing stuff, everything out, so I'm hoping for good things. Today's topic is the history of Star Wars video games, which I'm super excited about. I'm not a big gamer, to be honest. Like I've of course played Jedi Fallen Order a couple times, played some other games here and there, which is why I need special guests to come on and help me out with that. So for the first one, with multiple names, I see. We've got John, who John Tabito at Blink Blink Game. Yeah. Hey, John.
Hey, Tab is my handle. If you come check us out at Blink Blink Games, I'm on with Fridays, and Blinky streams every night except Mondays, so it's where you can find me.
And we've got Forward into the Black, Chase. Hey.
Hello. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Great. It did the whole. It went to Forward into the Black. It went to black, and I was like, oh no.
That's not what you want. That's not what you want.
No. Not
your voice is on Friday. Oh, John's voice is on Fridays. Julie's.
Oh,
Julie's,
yes. Yeah.
So of course, you can see we've got a whole like little bit different setup here. We've got the chat now on the screen, which is nice. But keep in mind that I'm dealing with new tech, so be kind. That is all I'm saying. Speaking of being kind, be sure to like this video, and if you haven't yet, subscribe, because liking this video helps push it out there for those that don't know I exist, and I want people to know. Of course, let me know again. We've got a couple of people in the chat. Let me know about sound levels and stuff like that. But first of all, welcome to Secret Transmissions. It's nice to both have you on for the first time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, always happy to nerd out with some Star Wars nerds.
That's basically why I started this. Is just to nerd out with my friends. It's the best thing ever. Before we get too far, let's go ahead and just say where people can find you on the socials and stuff like that. Chase, how about you?
Yeah, you can find me at Forward into the Black on TikTok and Twitch. I'm mostly on TikTok, but occasionally you'll find me streaming Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen on twitch.tv.
And how about
Nice.
John? Do you want me to go John or Tab? What do you prefer today?
No, yeah, you can just go with John. But if you I don't have a huge online presence, but you can see me or hear me on Fridays as Tab at Blink Blink Games and other nights as well. Sometimes there's special events and stuff. But generally, I'm not super social media.
Bleakly Games is, of course, a streamer on Twitch, and of course streams every night, and of course is on the socials as well, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. It's on all the socials. So Blink sometimes comes in here and gives us a little hello.
And tech support and tech support and streamer tips, pro streamer tips and everything. So
Blink, help. That's essentially the call out. That's what Blink gets.
Yeah.
So as far as of course both of you have grown up with Star Wars games. Tell us a little bit about your experience and just love of some of these games.
Sure. Who's going first?
Your own personal. Let's go, John. John, let's go.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah. So history of Star Wars games. Well, we were actually just chatting just before the stream came on, and Chase was saying, "Oh, well, we have to start with the original vector graphics arcade game," and I had that on my Commodore 64 growing up. That was my first Star Wars game, and that was a long time ago. That game came out in 1983, so do your own math. I'm not saying anything.
Well, to put this out there, next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, is the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, which came out in 1983. I did the math for you. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So since I've been playing Star Wars games since then, I've been playing I mean, other than some of the modern stuff, like I was never into like the Battlefield style Battlefront stuff, so I haven't played that, but like I've played almost every Star Wars game that's come out, with a few exceptions. So yeah.
Chase, how about you? Your kind of upbringing in history.
Yeah, I started a little bit later. I am still a product of the 80s, but wasn't born yet when the vector graphics went. I definitely played the vector arcade game in the arcades, like at a retro arcade later. But I was like a product of the Super Nintendo. So playing Super Star Wars, Super Return of the Jedi, like I went back and actually played those games not that long ago. They're still amazing games. They're brutally hard, but everyone's saying, Jedi Survivor is so hard. I'm like, you should go back and play Super Star Wars. That's a real challenge. But that's really where I started. And very similarly, have I played every single Star Wars game that has come out since then? No.
Oh, geez.
But most of them.
There's so much. There's so many.
Yeah. There's so many. There's a lot of bad ones out there. The Obi-Wan Kenobi game is...
What is the Obi-Wan Kenobi game? Kind of what time period did that come out?
This was an Xbox, like original Xbox exclusive. So we're looking 2001, 2002. It was after the events of Episode 1, I think was when the story took place. And it was a really clunky game. And the way you swung your lightsaber was with the right joystick on the controller. No button presses. You just moved the stick around and it kind of moved with you on screen, and it was just insufferable to play. Just not a good game.
Am I misremembering, or did Jedi Knight or Jedi Knight 2 have like a manual lightsaber control with mouse? I'm having some sort of you mentioning Jedi the thumbstick there. Yeah,
had that I think you could have it where you just clicked.
Yes,
and it would swing,
yeah, but it had
the feature. I mean, that was back when like it was the cool thing to do was play first-person shooters with your joystick. So that was a whole other thing to do with that game. But also another good game to go back to. Like the Dark Forces games and the Jedi Knight games still hold up. Like even the original Dark Forces, the Doom clone Dark Forces, fantastic game.
And you get to watch those wonderful 90s FMVs in the cutscenes, just with that
so good.
Brilliant 90s low budget acting.
Disney, where's Kyle Katarn? And bring him back. That guy's still alive. Just cast him.
Oh man.
All right.
Good
times. Let's start. Let's go way back. So I do have a few clips for today. There's too many games to like get all the footage for. But we're gonna go way back. So I think this is John, you sent this. Is it for the Commodore 64?
Yes, this is the vector graphics game. This is on the Commodore 64. I found some footage. I still have the Commodore 64 and it still works, but I lost my copy of Star Wars. So I'd actually thought about eBaying like another copy to try to get some like live play footage for this, but it didn't come together.
This is that is some commitment to this podcast. I appreciate that. So I'm gonna play this footage. This one is uncut, so it's gonna be a lot of stuff. But you can talk over it. I silenced it because it's the noises. You don't want to hear the noises. So yeah, vector.
It's very
so good.
Already, already this is winning. Pull trigger. Seriously, someone pull trigger to start. I can't actually scrub over some of this, but this gives you the time. If you were not alive to see these kind of graphics, well done you. But this was the 80s. This was definitely the early 80s for me.
So a funny little bit of trivia, personal story with this one is on the splash screen on this game, where it had that wonderful pixel graphic of Star Wars with Luke and everything. It was literally the first time I had ever put a game into my Commodore 64 where someone had encoded a human voice. So it had this extremely distorted 8-bit voice of Obi-Wan going, "The Force will be with you." And I remember like I put the game in, load 8 star 8 comma 1, hit enter, fires up, and then a voice comes out. And this was the first time my computer had spoken to me, was this game. And I was just like, oh my God, the future is here. And as you could see from the gameplay, the future was here. Like, you're moving around in a almost 3D space. Like, look at these amazing vector graphics. So those like snowflake things coming at you, that was the TIE fighters shooting at you. And you could shoot those down so that they didn't hit you, and that's what's happening. And then you could also, of course, shoot the TIE fighters. This person's really... Oh, there we go. They finally hit one. And you can see them, like, break apart into, like, wonderful 3 polygons. Yeah, so this was, like, the first stage of the game. It would play this. And then you're just flying around, and you shoot TIE fighters. And I can't remember if it was a timed thing or a score thing, but eventually it would go to the next phase, and the Death Star would show up in the middle of your screen, and then it would zoom in. So I don't know if you want to scrub forward.
Well, there's the Death Star. Watching this is kind of like watching a Michael Bay film. It's just so all over the place. Everything's like jumping around. It's like the it's like watching Bad Boys or something.
Yeah, like again, I remember playing this in an arcade, and absolutely, like, even after like Star Wars Arcade came out with like the joystick where it was like the Return of the Jedi stuff, but like I just look at this and I remember stuff like Elite, like the original Elite.
Yes, looked and very much like this.
The original like Microsoft Flight Simulator, and like just like how similar a lot of these games are, and how like a lot of games pulled from this. And yeah, this is cool, man. This is so cool.
Oh, it's great. It's so I'm getting nostalgia here. Yeah, so this is then you approach the trench, you're flying over the Death Star, and then so the towers have that little white bit on the top you could shoot, and then there were bunkers, the red ones that you could shoot, and once again they're shooting snowflakes at you. As you can see there, you could crash into the towers. That frame rate, like that, I'm impressed the Commodore was even able to pull this off at this frame rate. So
kids these days throw temper tantrums when it goes to like 50 frames a second, and I'm like,
I know, right? And here we have like a half frame a second, or
this is great.
Chase, you're making me feel older that you haven't reached our age yet, and you're already saying kids these days. That's
sorry.
No.
I was only born in 1988.
I'm curious, like you
made
watching
the 80s,
this.
though. Well done. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, me watching this, I mean, it brings me back. It brings me back to,
am I back?
To my childhood. Are you back?
I hear you.
Okay, am I back?
Okay.
So, my computer just on Siri, and it like just messed with, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah.
This, I mean, this is like what you see on like old movies too, when they're like, oh, we're now using computer graphics for certain things in a movie, like in Wrath of Khan or something, like, or
Yeah.
in like in Star Wars when they're showing the Death Star layout in A New Hope, you know, you like it's like this type of graphics,
Yep.
and so this very much has the stay on target look to me. You just need the yellow lines. There you go.
Yeah.
Blowing up the Death Star.
This is the trench run.
Boom.
And I love how this trench run looks like Luke's screen in A New Hope, right? Like it looks like his targeting computer.
I feel like I just won the game, even though I was just watching it. It's great. All right, I'm gonna.
So before Squadrons came out, there was a guy who did a VR like little project just called Project Stardust, and it was basically a recreation of this with a little columns or little metal things between it, which obviously is not in the movie, but he like recreated this whole thing in 3D and VR, and that was so much fun. Super hard, but it was so much fun.
Well, I mean, when was this? Obviously, it had to be since Rogue One, but when did this person do that?
This was like right after, like, this is probably right after Rise of Skywalker, before Squadrons came out in 2020, so probably 2018, or probably 2019.
Oh man, I was so excited for Squadrons when it came out. I did start to play it, but then I also realized how terrible I am at flight simulators. I am the worst at knowing, like, when I turn or when I do like dive into something, like, which way am I going? I forgot. I have no spatial awareness in flight simulator games going around in that. I'm like, wait, I'm turning around, going the wrong way. Oh no. John knows. He played with me a couple times on that.
I spend way too much money on that stuff. So.
Nice.
So doing like Squadrons with like a really high quality like flight stick and VR is a totally different experience.
Well, because you have a whole like gaming like flight simulator type setup, right? Like you kinda set yourself up.
Yeah, it's this chair has like all of the joysticks and throttles attached to the chair. But I mostly do like Microsoft Flight Simulator. You know, Squadrons and Star Citizen are for fun. But like, I'm here like doing the checklists in Microsoft Flight Simulator, just make sure I need to learn this one day.
I'll be honest. If I had a chair like that, even without playing a game, I'd be like doing the knobs and like going pew pew
constantly.
Yeah, constantly. Okay.
Constantly.
I'm not alone in
constantly. Just like.
I would just have like a background noise of people like yelling, "Where are you going, Red 5?"
So I love how we've like basically we showed, you know, we're that was the whole game. Like you just saw the whole 1983 Star Wars game.
Yeah.
So like you compare that runtime to, you know, a modern game, like, and yet somehow I don't know how many hundreds of hours of my childhood were spent playing that game.
I mean, with so much perspective of the time period, right? Like if you only have a certain amount, this is like the beginning of video games, and that's all you have. Like you're gonna play the crap out of it. I mean, how many hours did people spend in arcades playing the same game over and over again, trying to beat certain levels? I mean, not me, but other people. I was. No, it's true. I mean, I like to play games. I just I didn't get a Nintendo until I was like in junior high, which it was sad not growing up with that. I mean, it was a rough childhood, you know.
Oh yes, yeah. Food, shelter, who needs that? We need Nintendo.
Wait, Harith saying playing Squadrons with Chase is something else. Yeah. I bet. I mean, it's like I would struggle to keep up. I would want to be on your team though, because I'd be straggling behind, but I'd want to be on your team.
It is fun. Like the little one-on-one dogfights you can do with people is a blast in that game. And like, yeah, I'd say it is probably. You're right. I think it is wildly inaccessible to a lot of people. Like it is just a complicated game, but it is a blast to play. I mean, you don't even the story mode is great, even on story mode where it kind of just aims for you and everything. That story is really good. I think it got really glossed over, but I mean, for me, seeing Harrison Dula life size in VR was kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the story on that game is really good. I think the way they kind of faithfully and modernized the X-Wing games and the TIE Fighter games, like just how the stuff was laid out, even where like the ship controls were, or like the how you had your power and engine shields and weapons. It was perfectly lined up where X-Wing was, and I was like, you know what, this is great. For a $40, like, it's not exactly X-Wing, but it is something for people who like the X-Wing games. And I recently downloaded. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just say there are some fan-made remakes of TIE Fighter and X-Wing using modern technology. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say I just downloaded the X-Wing Alliance like modern upgrade thing, and it looks amazing. The people who have put the time and effort into that, like it really, because that game now has multiple joystick support, because it used to be you had game ports for that game and you had to bind everything that way, and they've added VR support to the to X-Wing Alliances now. So like they really put a lot of effort into it. So like definitely kudos to everyone who's worked on those over the past 20 years. But yeah, those games are fantastic. They were a huge part of my childhood, and just the amount of hours spent in them just failing mostly.
I destroyed. So I didn't have a flight stick for X-Wing. Initially, like I saved up after a long time and finally got one, but I was playing it with a mouse, and this was back when the mouse had a ball in it. And that ball, if you would trap dust and everything, the more you used it. And I destroyed, no kidding, 5 or 6 mice playing X-Wing because I played it that much, and it just like the ball, it just eventually then just there's just too much in there, and it just gave up, and it's like, well, time for a new mouse.
I mean, well done. So
yeah, that's an accomplishment.
Sarah was asking, wait, Hera is in Squadrons. So is Hera in Squadrons with story mode, you were saying?
With story mode, yes. She's not like a main character, but she does show up for a couple missions. The way the story mode kind of works in Squadrons is you have like the hangar that you can kind of hang out in and talk to the characters individually, and then you go into the briefing room, and some of the Rebel missions, Hera will be in that briefing room giving you a mission. She's a huge part of Starhawk, I think is the code name for what they're trying to steal from the Empire. It's her and Wedge, and then some new characters for Squadrons, and some other stuff from the new expanded universe. Ray Sloan is a big part of the Empire campaign. So, yeah, she's in it. She's amazing. And yeah, if you haven't done it, it's usually on sale for like $5, if not free a lot of times. And like I said, the story mode, like difficulty, does a lot of work for you. So if you do get kind of like lost and like aiming the X-Wing is harder than aiming a gun in Battlefront, so it definitely helps you out. I tried it out and I was like, wow, this is actually really fun.
That's another one.
So it's definitely worth doing if you
aiming in
free.
Battlefront. Yeah, terrible. We probably lost Sarah to go commandeer her son's computer with Squadrons on it
and go
find Hera. Bye, Sarah.
If you got a VR headset as well, she is she is there life size. Like you're standing next to Hera in that game, and it is really cool.
Well, I will see you, Sarah, in 3 months. That's now that's happening.
And the story mode's really good in that, like, for a game that was very obviously designed as a multiplayer, like 5-on-5 game, the story mode's fantastic. Like they put a ton of effort into it when they could have just very easily it could have been like Battlefront in space, right? Like
and there's stuff I wish they would have done, because it was all really well done, but they did like a short story for the game that really dealt with Keo and Frisk, and kind of like their relationship and how their rivalry kind of started. And there's like just like a really quick short story that was posted on EA's website, and I was like, you should have published this. It's really good. It's just them being like friendly rivals, and kind of how they got to where they were and how they joined the rebellion and into the New Republic, and how he got his death marks and stuff like that. So it's a great story, and they continued on with that. And I could say the New Republic story is probably a little bit better than the Empire story. I think the characters are just more varied and have more interesting backgrounds. But even the Empire story with Ray Sloan is really great.
So going back in time just for a moment, I've got a couple more videos that we can do here. I've got a video from Rebel Assault. This might be a long gameplay video. But just put this
Yeah, the
out
one I
there.
said used a full gameplay, so
Yeah.
just scrub through some stuff.
We could talk.
So this
until
was yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I missed that
yeah, because
LucasArts.
we're jumping forward, and there was a bit of so yeah, the 83 was the vector version. I think it was 80. It might have been out in arcades maybe a few years before that, but yeah, and then basically until the NES, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Chase, but like I can't, like, did we have any other Star Wars gaming until 91 when like
I don't think so. I think
yeah.
it was the platformers, yeah, I'm watching on the screen, the LucasArts platformers. Once those kind of hit, that was really it. Because I mean, I didn't have a Super Nintendo, but my cousin did, and we lived very close to each other, and that's how I played pretty much everything. And then we got a computer, like an IBM computer, and then the Dark Forces stuff came out, and yeah, like there was I guess, yeah, probably until like the book started really coming out is when games started coming out again. Like once Heir to the Empire was published, that's when
then we started.
Yeah.
Because NES, the first NES had one that came out in 91, and then Super Star Wars was
94,
92
93.
or 90 or somewhere, yeah. And then this one, yeah. So Rebel Assault, this came out for PC in 93. This was the first PC game I ever had, like not on my Commodore. And you can see again this just the wonderful full motion video stuff in it. The wonderful quality of the scene from New Hope that they're showing there.
Oh man, I remember when they started to do that, and it was just like the best thing ever. Even if it, like,
right?
looking back, it was terrible. It's like, oh my god, it's actually them.
I know, and it's like, this is actually from the movie,
so good.
And it's on my computer. Yeah. Yeah. So this one set you as like an unnamed, just like you're like a new rebel hotshot, and you actually like start the game doing a training mission in a T-16 flying through Beggar's Canyon, and then it goes through a bunch of stages. Like you go to Hoth, you fly Snowspeeder through Hoth, you fly an A-wing somewhere. I don't remember where you're flying it. It'll be in here somewhere. But it was a rail shooter, so kind of like the original arcade game. You weren't really flying. You were pointing your reticle at what you wanted to shoot, and it would ever so slightly steer your ship. But yeah, I remember playing this one a ton, and it was just super cool to be like the T-16, because like we saw it as a Luke playing with it as a model in A New Hope, right? And then it's like, oh my god, I'm flying one, and I'm in Beggar's Canyon. Like, this is so cool. And you'll see how wonderful the canyon looks here when it gets. If you just skip ahead a bit, maybe. Let's just watch
it. Yeah, it is what it is right now. What year was this that Julie's asking?
This was 93. Yeah. And oh man,
there we go.
That Here's command center window. This is bringing back some memories for me, and it was
Julie, you're gonna lose John to these old games for a while.
I don't even know if this one would have to. I'm sure someone's. I mean, a lot of these old games, they're actually really challenging to run on modern hardware without substantial effort, just because of how things were done. So sometimes you can get like a modern version of it that'll run, but a lot of the times they're just like kind of dead, unless you happen to have an old 386 laying around that still works, and you still have the CD-ROM with this game on it.
What I love about this is this is 3 years before Quake came out,
right?
And this looks fantastic. I know, like, anyone watching this now that has no, like, oh, this looks garbage. Like, we just got Jedi Survivor that has like lifelike 3D models and facial animation, but like these graphics are insane, especially for like 1993. And like, I'm like, man, I remember like the first couple 3D games I played and being blown away. Like, I remember like telling my mom, like, booting up like the original TIE Fighter, like, look, it's just like the movie. It's like it's lifelike, and then it's like, man, it looks so good.
Okay, now we get to shoot things.
Yeah, because this was like the training mission. So at first it was like just fly your ship without crashing, and then finally it's like, okay, here's some targets for you to shoot at. Finally,
I
actually
would
at that
still
point,
fail though.
oh, and
There
and
we
it
go.
actually
Yeah.
was there were parts in this game that actually got really really hard. Like I died in this thing a lot. It actually took me a long time to ever finish this game. But because the edges of things, you would have to, not only would you have to like try and shoot stuff, but your ship kind of steered a bit like a boat, and you would have to try to also not crash into stuff. So
I mean, the way this, if this is back in like '93, the 3D look to it, the three-dimensional look that they're giving it is great for that time period. I mean,
well then, so this Chase mentioned like Quake was a couple years later, and
yeah.
that so Quake really kind of kicked off the real-time 3D rendering,
Hmm.
whereas this one's a bit of a cheat where these scenes were pre-rendered and then are stored on the game as 2D assets, and then and then like play the video back of the pre-rendered 3D.
Yeah.
And you'll notice like the ship is it's several angles of the ship, but they're just 2D sprites.
Yeah.
But that was that was like mind blowing, because it's like, oh my god, it's almost 3D, and it looks so good, and it did kind of look, it does look better than Quake, because even when Quake came out, that was great, but the computers were only so powerful, so the 3D didn't look that great rendered live. You couldn't render this quality live. So this did look better in terms of just like the texture quality and the resolution and stuff.
Put this in perspective. For movie making, Lucasfilm, this is the same year Jurassic Park came out. And so this would have been the time period where like the computer graphics and like pushing a lot of that was like about to leap forward. Is this time period so like this and Jurassic Park time period, LucasArts and Lucasfilm pushing that, and then of course you've got Quake a couple years later. But this is like like a very important year in computer graphics.
Yeah, I mean, games in
Yeah.
general, like that 2.5D was like the phrase going around before we got full render. Like, I mean, Doom, I think, is like the quintessential 2.5D game. But yeah, a lot of those games, I mean, even some of the like Alone in the Dark, like on PC, was like another one of the things. It's like a fully rendered background with a 2D sprite moving around. A lot of the Lucas Arts like point and click adventure games like used a lot of this technology, and those are
And they were so fun. Like LucasArts games was just on fire in the 90s.
I have Fate of Atlantis on Steam, and they have it like running through DOSBox.
Good.
An amazing game, really
It's
good.
so good. I don't know why. I don't know if maybe this sticks out for you too. It has nothing to do with the game, but it's just like a little moment that was so good in that game, is when you're on the U-boat, and if you go to the kitchen into the meat locker, Indy can find some cold cuts, and if you click on him, he'll make a sandwich and eat it. And just they had this like really satisfying like eating noise that Indy made. It's just like,
yeah, I mean, it's funny because like you mentioned, like the first time you heard like a computer, like a voice come out of your computer, and I remember those moments like early on, like those really muffled like MIDI, like they manipulated voice. But the first time like we started getting like voice acting in games, like with a lot, and this was really mostly like a lot of the LucasArts stuff. Even TIE Fighter with pixelated Thrawn, and kind of hearing Thrawn talk, for the first time was like really cool moments. And like at Celebration, like it hit me harder than I thought it would, seeing Thrawn on like real life, because like read the books and watched Rebels, enjoyed it, but Thrawn to me was always like the bad guy from TIE Fighter. And so seeing him live, like it like snapped into my brain of like that like position he's in for most of the game. And I'm like, man, like thinking back to like the early mid 90s when all those games were coming out, and like we were getting all this stuff, and like 20-30 years later it's all happening in real life. It's just such a cool feeling.
The rumor right now, just a rumor this week, is that Dave Filoni's movie is going to be called Heir to the Empire. But just the idea of having like Thrawn on the big screen and like having him be like the big bad, just there, Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I'm
Although
in.
Thrawn, the argument is Thrawn the heir to the Empire, or is it Joru's Sabaoth? So like maybe
It,
maybe
it's
Filoni is
it's
going to bring us.
it's going to be a sideball. It's going to be Prince Shizor is going to be the new heir to the
So that's another. So that's Shadows of the Empire.
Shadow of the
I mean,
Empire.
so good.
That is a game that doesn't hold up. I will say that.
Okay,
There's a
I
lot.
haven't replayed it. So okay, tell us what.
So
Yeah, because
okay, a lot of like when we go back to Super Star Wars, right? It's just a very difficult SNES era platformer. It's great. Everything in that game is canon to me. Don't fight me on that. There were definitely scorpions on Tatooine. I don't know what you're talking about. But that game is great. These flight games, the X-wing games, Rebel Assault, those all control really well because it is that kind of first person. You can kind of get away with these floaty things. You're in a spaceship. This was one of the first like 3D platformer shooter games, and we hadn't like Super Mario figured it out with Mario 64, and everything tried to copy that, but not every game wanted to be Super Mario. The controls of Shadows of the Empire, and it's a great game if you get through the story and you kind of like you live through Empire through Return of the Jedi basically in that game, and there's really memorable boss fights. You fight Boba Fett at one point. You fight an AT-ST in the beginning of the game. You go through the Battle of Hoth at the beginning of the game, which was great. And like those sections where you're flying and the sections when you're in the Outrider, awesome. Anytime you're in control of Dash Rendar, he is just doing what he wants to do and falling off of everything. The jetpack doesn't work. It's like a running out of fuel mini game kind of thing, and he just kind of you want him to go there, and he's going to go there. So it's really tricky to play these days. I think the other thing that playing a lot of like N64 games recently is the way that analog stick was embedded into like angled divots, and all modern controllers are just a round divot. So getting that perfect angle is really hard on modern controllers. So it doesn't work well on new hardware. Still,
interesting.
Read the book is my suggestion.
Don't watch the game. Read the book. That's
watch the game. Don't play the game.
Okay.
Read the book
watch
as well.
The story.
That's the way to go through it, because it is, especially like some of the boss fights. Like you fight IG-88 at one point, but you're in this like really, you're in a junkyard, and just the angles and camera angles getting stuck on the junk and stuff like that is pretty infuriating. But great,
as a
nostalgia
villain,
trip.
Well, yeah, as a villain, like I like Prince Shizor. I mean, it can't be AF, and but great villain as far as I'm concerned. Again, probably nostalgia glasses, but
yeah, I think I got to like I think you go back to Tatooine to fight Boba Fett, and like I got to that port where you're just jumping all on these teeny tiny little pillars, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like the gladiator droid, I remember as a kid being almost impossible to beat, where he ends up being a little tiny head that's floating around. So I didn't get to like even the Dianoga boss fight. I didn't get to any of the actual Shizor cutscenes. I was like, I can't do this. This is rough.
That's saying a lot from a gamer. All right. We've got video from X-Wing. Oh, by the way, Harris says that Heir to the Empire rumor is from We Got This Covered, so it's probably pretty much BS. But Thrawn is the big bad in the new. And Thrawn is the big bad, like that. Dave Filoni has said that. Whether that stays for the movie, we'll find out after Ahsoka.
I have thought about starting an actual like legitimate publication site called Trust Me Bro. Like an actual news site that like, hey, like we talked to the industry professionals about the website called Trust Me Bro. And so you can finally say source was Trust Me Bro.
I'm telling you, it's so hard because every time like on any social media platform, or like when I'm just looking through the news feeds, just to try to keep up on the news of the day, like you see all these like headlines, and they're just all clickbait, and they're all BS. Every single one of them. I'm like, is there any sort of actual reliable like news source for Star Wars? I can't
Yeah,
think of a single
StarWars.com is the real source.
Star Wars.
Go to Star Wars Celebration and get in the panel.
Because you can't trust the people who make it. Because if you're like, is so and so in this? They go no, and then that person shows up. So you can't trust like them saying it. Just
that's true.
StarWars.com. Got it. It's a terrible website too. So good luck on that. Okay, so we've got a video from X-Wing. I think this is also a long play video. But there you are.
So this was also 93. I think it came out.
Oh, interesting. Same
just
here.
After Rebel Assault or just before? I don't know. Is right around the same time.
Rap Dodonna. Yeah, it's gonna go through a whole thing. What the difference between this one and the other game? I mean, if they came out so close together.
X-Wing was a flight sim. So right. X-Wing. So whereas Rebel Assault was a rail shooter, X-Wing was a flight sim. So you actually got to fly your X-Wing and your A-Wing and your B-Wing and your Y-Wing around. Like you controlled where it went. You had to manage your power, manage your shields. These wonderful briefings. Oh, this is taking me back. This is and it's so these beautiful, like, I just love what these artists could do with these pixel palettes, like, because I remember playing these games and, like, you know, it's there's 4 frames of animation in the whole scene, like, and you hover over the door and the door opens in 2 frames, but it, like, really did make me feel like, oh yeah, I'm, like, going into the briefing room now, and, like, I'm gonna go get into my ship. And yeah, this was it's just what they pulled off, the amount of immersion they got out of this palette, it's just fantastic.
Pew, pew.
Astromech getting loaded into your X-Wing animation, just
yeah, this is the game. The last game I would have been okay with, but this is one where I would have just been terrible. So even when it comes to like Star Wars Lego, the Skywalker saga, going through that, every time it's just like regular play, it's like great, but as soon as I like have to get into like the flight stuff, it's like, all right, I get super paranoid and just yeah, that's where I score the worst. Yeah. Is on the flying parts.
These games like definitely were, I think, really pivotal and influential for me, kind of like even now doing like flight school and stuff like that. You know, a big part of it was like I was pretty fortunate that I was able to borrow a joystick and, you know, plug it into a game port and play this. And, you know, it was basically, you know, using the joystick like this, and then all the key binds, you know, to scan, you know, all the freighters and stuff like that, target the next person, to, you know, get your missiles ready and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's going back even recently for like the mods and, like, you know, revitalizations of the game, and just like how crazy in depth these games were, especially for the time, how good they look. Like when you look at, I mean, it's just like, you know, pixel art for the HUD, like it still works. Like it still works really, really well. And kind of even more to, you know, harp on, you know, Squadrons is like kind of keeping that whole menu system of like, you're going to go into the hangar, you're going to do your hangar stuff, and then you're going to go into the briefing room to learn about your mission. And instead of just doing like text screens like that, it very much felt like the old games. And it's something I miss in modern games, is like these really immersive menu systems that like really were a part of the game, instead of just being like a splash screen and then start to continue and stuff like that. So I miss that a whole lot. And it's so good seeing this stuff again.
And they made I don't know if I sent you any clips for TIE Fighter. TIE Fighter looked visually very similar. So we probably don't. Yeah, like but when you get into the menu system, they did an even more immersive menu setup in TIE Fighter. Like you were in this Imperial ship and you had like the different doors you'd go in for the briefings. And then one thing that was super cool is they had like your quarters where there was like a box with your medals. And so like as you did missions, you would earn medals. And so your box, you'd have like a new Imperial medal sitting in your box. And then at one point you get like, you go on this Black Ops mission. And so if you after you've done that, if you hover your mouse over your arm in this screen, you like roll up your sleeve and you've got the tattoo of like this special forces imperial unit that you're now part of. It was just, yeah, it was, even the menus were just part of the game and part of the experience, which I'm trying to think if I could, if I can't think of a modern example that does that.
Yeah, Squadrons is literally the only, and even Squadrons
Yeah.
is like a regular main menu, but in the story mode, you are in that kind of
Yes.
briefing
Mhm.
room hangar like system.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just not a thing people do anymore, and it's kind of sad that we don't have these
Mhm.
like fun, creative, immersive main menus.
Mhm.
That's you've heard it here. Bring back EA. Bring back.
Bring back.
Yeah, I don't think EA will do it, but maybe someone else.
They do cool stuff like the Jedi Survivor splash screen is the opening cutscene of the game, which
Mhm.
is pretty cool. Like once you hit start, a gunship comes in through the main menu and then the game starts. So it's definitely cool touches like that you'll see. But yeah, the old immersive menus.
Oh, the nostalgia is real. So we've got next thing I've got here is Dark Forces. I don't remember what this is, but yeah. All right, Dark Forces.
This was a first person shooter, 1995, and this in terms of the story in this series of games is just so good, and like, and still being borrowed from Mandalorian, all of the Dark Trooper stuff.
Yep.
That's from this game. That's rooted in this game.
Oh, this is where Dark Troopers come from. Okay.
Yeah, they're in Jedi Survivor as well.
Yeah.
And so like seeing those like really, really high definition is really cool.
And they're not quite the same, but the concept, like this game is the whole concept is that the Empire is developing these massive super armored stormtrooper super soldiers, and like you're going in to destroy them. Like you're gonna stop the Dark Forces program.
Is this Harris says, oh boy, it's time to watch Kyle Katarn steal the Death Star plans like 50 times. Is that is that this game? I never played this
Kyle,
so.
Yes. Yeah, so Kyle Katarn is the protagonist of the Dark Forces series, which eventually became the Jedi Knight games. I think they dropped because it was Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, but then I think it was just Jedi Knight : whatever after that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you had Dark Forces 2, Jedi the Lightsaber, and I think there was another game in between there, and then Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy came out.
Yeah. I recognize all the titles.
There's 5 or 6 of these games.
Of all of them, what are your favorites with that generation of games?
That's really hard because like the first Dark Forces, like the Doom clone, just in the age of Doom clones, like there were so many good ones. I mean, like Chex Quest was a standout game. It was a game that came in a cereal box.
Yeah.
And that was like a standout game for a lot of people. And this was another one, especially as a Star Wars fan. Like Doom was great, and this was Doom but Star Wars. Yeah, and it's done so well. But Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, like Jedi Outcast, I think unanimously has the better storyline, but Jedi Academy's multiplayer, like the modded servers on PC, the Xbox Live community, that there was like a whole, like 2 different types of play styles, because on the Xbox, people were just messing with joystick sensitivities to like make like walls of lightsabers, and like the multiplayer and stuff like that was really, really fun, but it was a totally different, thing on PC. So it's really hard to say because like they're all so good. There's not really a bad one.
Sorry for all the credits. Yeah, this is going to take a while to get through, but don't worry. The next videos I have are all trailers, so they're very condensed. I'm looking at that like, oh, the names of I don't recognize any of the voice actors there. But I mean, voice actors that they have now are just it's a big business for games.
Yeah,
to be a voice actor.
And I would say, and LucasArts was really one of the first like publishers I remember that, as Chase was saying, that started putting like talent into voice acting. Like you know, a lot of their games had voice and were well voiced. It wasn't just like a throwaway thing. Like they obviously had people who cared about the project, who had talent doing the voiceovers.
One name, John Knowles. There we go. There's a Lucasfilm person. There's the name.
Stormtrooper, Dying Rebel, and narrator, all the same person.
Yep. Denny Delk.
It's like whenever you say things in like D. Bradley Baker is like all the animals, and you're like, okay, sure, yeah, it's a way to use a voice. Sorry, these credits are taking forever. Yeah, we don't have to keep watching this, but if you're curious about Dark Forces, I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah, and they all and so Dark Forces was I mean, I wouldn't call it a Doom clone, because I like it was very much its own game, but it was that same style of 2.5D, you know, where it's a lot of sprites in a 3D environment. But then, yeah, with the second one, they actually moved to polygons, and so it's like each game kind of came out at like the next sort of stage of game evolution, and so each one of them is very different. You know, like there's just like, you know, as the technology progressed. And during that period, like, yeah, you can see, you know, in 2 years, you go from all 2D graphics to Quake coming out, and then everything's polygon, right? Like 2 years apart for a game in that time, they would look vastly different. And that kind of, with the whole Jedi Knight Dark Forces series, you see that difference from game to game to game. So each of them is all kind of it's very much a product of its time, right? Like, and they all play very differently.
Yeah, I mean, just the release of Star Wars games in general, like through the 90s and early 2000s, was just exciting, because you're right, it followed technology like very closely. Like if you look at, I mean, I still think like Rogue Squadron 2 on the GameCube, like it looks phenomenal. Like if you look at the trench run on that, it's still a great representation of that. But then you look at like what came out, the original Rogue Squadron, you know, 3 years before that, you know, it was pretty primitive, and then it got really good. And now you look at Jedi Fallen Order versus Jedi Survivor, and it's like, yeah, Jedi Survivor is a better looking game, but a little bit better.
Yeah, like Fallen Order still looked.
Yes, Fallen Order still gorgeous.
Like, yeah. Yeah, it looks gorgeous in 1440, and then Jedi Survivor looks gorgeous in 4K, right? Yeah. Like that's the difference, you know.
It's great. Yeah. But yeah, it is a little less exciting, you know, as far as like a visual standpoint. But I mean, it's impressive just to see, you know, now it's really, I think, just like the actors' performances or like kind of like the technology like standpoint and how they capture that. So it's great to see. But yeah, the Dark Forces games coming out and then becoming like the Jedi Knight games, and like you said, like Dark Forces 2 versus Jedi Academy was a big deal. Like it's like, wow, we've come a long way.
All right, let's dive into one of the most famous games of Star Wars, at least the one that people know most about, is Knights of the Old Republic, KOTOR. Yeah, oh yeah, Julia's saying the mocap is really cool. Yeah, going back to the mocap, seeing Mark Hamill, the videos with Mark Hamill and Cameron.
Oh my god, those are so funny.
They're
so
hilarious.
Funny,
but I love seeing behind the scenes. I know there were some. I had some, you know, mutuals on like Instagram, like Imperial Surplus. They got to be in the background of that, being some of the people fighting. So just to be there with like Mark Hamill and Cameron Monaghan just filming those things, I'm like, oh, well done. That's being a part of the 501st and being that is, yeah, it's got its perks. So KOTOR, before we get started, I do have a trailer for it. So this one does have sound, hopefully.
Oh man, the trailer for this game was,
oh yeah,
I don't want to say Force Awakens level of hype, but pretty big deal when this trailer came out.
And let's just dive in. Here we go.
In the end, you belong to neither the light nor the darkness. You will forever stand alone. If Valak is not stopped, the Republic will fall.
The Force fights with me!
So this, you know, being the remake looks...
Yeah, this is the more recent trailer, just because that's for Switch. I downloaded it. I just haven't played it on Switch. I'll be honest. I've played some of KOTOR, but it's when it came out for phone, and so you know I was playing it because why not? But I've gotten to Kashyyyk. That's where I got to. So I didn't really fully progress in the story, but it took. Again, I'm not great with games, but like playing with something like old school like that hadn't really been revamped for playability easily on those devices. Yeah, but I do debate trying to play it on Switch now. But
it's
I mean,
they may have fixed it. It crashes a lot on the Switch.
Okay.
Especially just doing certain things. The best way to play that game is the original Xbox version. The PC, if you have a Windows XP PC, it's a pretty good experience. Anything past that, it's prone to crashing, even in kind of like emulator stuff. KOTOR was really special to me because I was really suffering from like Luke Skywalker burnout. Like every book, every game featured Luke Skywalker in one way or another. And I was like so desperate for anything else. Like even like the Rogue Squadron books, how they kind of used Luke Skywalker as like, oh, you're going to Luke Skywalker this one, aren't you? You think you're a hot shot, and kind of like poking fun at the character. I love Luke Skywalker, but in the 90s, there was a lot of him. And knowing that nothing Star Wars like that we know it is going to be in this game, and it was all new, all fresh, was really, really cool. And I think for me, like I still like the gameplay. I still, you know, I grew up with a lot of the BioWare RPGs, you know, like Baldur's Gate, the Neverwinter Nights games, which that may have been BioWare.
Yep, Neverwinter Nights was BioWare.
Yeah,
Right there.
and like that style of gameplay wasn't new to me. So, and it's like I tell people all the time, it's just Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's all, if you look at the stats, it's all on dice based. So
They just reused the engine that they built for like they were just using the same engine that they used to make D&D games. So and they just made it Star Wars.
Yeah. But to me the biggest success of KOTOR was like it was 3,000 years in the past. Yoda hasn't been born yet. And how well they made everything feel like Star Wars. We've never seen it before, but it felt Star Wars. Like the Sith fighters that you kind of see in the little turret section, like, oh yeah, that we've never seen anything like that, but that feels Star Wars. You know, the Ebon Hawk, I think it's the Millennium Falcon. So, but it's everything they did in that game was so good. And just kind of like seeing like the Sith Empire and like the, you know, it's like, oh yeah, like the Sith are here, but this is just a Sith trooper. It's not a lightsaber guy. And obviously the infamous twist of the first game.
Are we past the statute of limitations on spoilers for a game?
I think it's been 72 hours since the game came out.
From 2003.
Go for it. Yeah, I mean, if you're planning on playing the game and you haven't yet, I mean, everybody talks about the story. So in Star Wars world,
the fact that you are you hear about Darth Revan throughout the game, and towards the last part of the game, it turns out you are in fact Darth Revan. I think everyone was. I don't know a single person that was like, I saw that coming. Like
I didn't, for sure.
I won't get into the Jedi Survivor spoilers, but the big spoiler I saw coming within the first 15 minutes of that game. And KOTOR, I remember being like, you're joking. And also not like, it wasn't a bad twist. It was like, this is something I haven't seen before. And yeah, like I love the game. I kind of hate the fan base it has created.
Oh, the Duke Bros are real in that one.
The Revan Bros, not a good time.
It's like,
and like there's characters I really like. Like I actually like Darth Nihilus and Visage, but like I get so frustrated when people say, "Oh, Nihilus is so cool. He eats planets." I'm like, that's not what he does. And Nihilus is not a cool character without Visage, and you're not talking about Visage when you're talking about Nihilus, so you don't know what you're talking about, so please stop. But yeah, I was a big KOTOR 2 person as well. Like, Krea's view of the Force was so interesting. She was an insufferable companion to have because she just like berated you the whole time. But that's when you would talk to her about the Force, it was just like stuff you either had thought about before or just, you know, never even had that perspective. And just like the places they explored and the elements of Star Wars they explored in those 2 games were incredible. And I hope we get the remake someday. I really do. I think they can make the remake canon. I don't think it's so far in the past that you can kind of just get away with whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean that's gonna be a big, like, would they? But I will say, like, even though the game itself isn't like canon, it's probably one of the most influential things for Jedi Sith going forward was that game to this day. It still influences how they do things or references they make. It's huge in that. Just like going through and playing the game, I'm like, oh, I get it now. Okay, this is where that came from. And I think, like,
and it was like, and when that came out, you know, every game's an open world game now, but and probably by today's standards, you probably wouldn't even call KOTOR open world, but it was, for then, it felt open world. Like, it felt like, oh, I get to kind of like choose to go to another planet and like choose what part of this planet I'm going to go try to walk around in, and like who I'm going to go talk to, and like, and I'm going to get to do this in Star Wars. Like, that, to me, I think it was the first Star Wars game that did that. Unless I'm not remembering something. Well, I mean, other than, of course, Super Star Wars, when we got to wander around Tatooine and fight the Scorpions. Like, that's obviously.
Yeah, I think you're right. As far as like open world, kind of do what you want. Yeah, I think it was the first open world Star Wars game we ever got. And I think, you know, another thing that I thought was so interesting was the side stuff to do in both of those games. Like, there was like points where you were like a lawyer in those games. Like, there was like a murder mystery on Dantooine. You know, someone was possibly incorrectly arrested on Manon. And just like kind of like having to go around and collect the clues and you know, interrogate people and stuff like that. Some of the stuff they made you do, especially if you're trying to do a light side thing, run, and then, you know, being on Korriban and trying to not be evil, like the kind of the situations they put you in, it's like, ooh, what do I do? And then also in the second game,
well, and even the choice between, like, you know, you say the lights, you know, like, you're not just the hero. Like, no, are you going to go light side, dark side, somewhere in the middle? Like, that was also novel. Like,
yeah. And something that, like, with Jedi Survivor coming out and kind of, you know, new cast members and new companions and stuff like that. And it's like, it was maybe a part of the game that maybe disappointed me a little bit. And I've noticed a lot with a lot of more modern games, but I looked back at Knights of the Old Republic 1 to 2, and then you're looking at stuff like Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and kind of how they really did do a good job with like introducing new characters and slowly moving out old characters, and kind of did it in a really gradual and like nice way, and it made it feel like we're not pushing characters aside, where I think a lot of more modern games are like, well, we got these new characters, we're going to show them to you, and that's that. It made me miss some of the stuff, some of the interactions from KOTOR 2, like even like meeting characters like Jolie in KOTOR 2 again, and kind of seeing what he's up to. So yeah, well, just great games overall.
BioWare's games, they were always just, I mean, even going into Dragon Age, you know, the having just really compelling supporting characters just always been an element of their games. And HK-47 KOTOR, like, best Star Wars character ever, period.
You use a lot of characters that are like, whenever we played Star Wars RPG games, that's essentially the model
statement. HK-47 is the best.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of like the Old Republic chopper. Just a menace.
Yeah.
Just an
so I was always a T3 person, and I got really upset with the Revan novel because of how they treat T3. But what was really cool at Celebration and at the Droid Builders is they did have a T3, like a full 2-scale T3 model, and they had a little T3 named Trevor, which was great. But yeah, the companions of KOTOR 1 and 2 like were so memorable. Like it was not like, oh yeah, who was the lightsaber guy? Like no, every one of those characters had an interesting story.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean BioWare, like you said, BioWare was just they were the
they
masters of
expanded
that.
on Mandalorians. Like there was a lot into that still.
Yeah, and that goes back to kind of like how well they did it. Like the Mandalorian suits like didn't look like Boba Fett, right? You know, for a lot of people, Din Djarin is just silver Boba Fett. But what was so cool about KOTOR is like these are early Boba Fetts, and it was like the way they just kind of conveyed everything of like this is just an earlier version of everything. It was so good.
All right. I mean, even T3 is like an early version of an astromech, right? Like it's like
it's interesting, and getting like further into what the Sith are and the fact that the Sith weren't just like the Palpatines. Like it was like historically went much bigger and wider with that. It wasn't just Force users. It was a whole group of people that there was a war with. It's really interesting. Just the lore behind that. I think that's a lot of people get stuck on is a lot of that lore, and like they want all of that because it was so good to be canon. So there's a lot of like people cling to that, and then you get the dude bros who just can't let go.
Yeah, what's so wild is I don't know if you have it planned, but jumping into the Old Republic, the MMO, and just seeing the divisiveness within the divisiveness about the Old Republic. I mean, the Old Republic came out and was known as Tortanic. Like it was like a disaster to so many people, but it's still like pretty active today. Because there's these people that are really, really into like Revan and the Old Republic era and like really love the concept of the MMO, but then there's also like the KOTOR purists who hate the MMO. And it's just so interesting. It's like, man, you guys can't agree on anything.
Welcome to
it's
Star
all
Wars.
Good. It's all continuing the story. They have a whole Revan expansion that like continues the story, not only from the games, but from the novel. And it's like, that still wasn't enough for you guys.
I had somebody in my comments today. I made a post earlier today on both TikTok and IG about nostalgia and the Star Wars fandom. And there's one person that like was very insistent in the comments like about the sequels and stuff like that. No, but they are bad. Like kept proving my point over and over again. I kept being like, no, man, you are doing exactly what this video says. It's just they will stick to their guns like those that.
I had that recently. I had that recently. I did the making fun of Return of the Jedi as though it was a YouTube video essay.
Oh yeah.
And just the amount of people it just goes. I had like for Revenge of the Fifth, I did like Star Wars like red flags, and it was basically like if you're obsessed with Revan, if you're like in love with Anakin, like these are the red flags of the Star Wars fandom.
Yeah.
And then someone stitched it today and was like, you're the red flag of the fandom. And I'm like, you don't pay attention to the fandom if you don't know what I'm talking about.
So this week, Mesa Windu has been trying to tell people why the Sith are bad, why they're the bad guys, and why they're code and everything else. And like, because the whole thing in Star Wars right now, there's a lot of people being like, the Jedi suck and the Sith are right. It's like, whoa.
Do you realize he just walks outside and he's like, who is in charge of the Empire?
Yeah. I mean, like the whole everything the Sith and everything's designed on historically are all the terrible things and terrible people. And like the Sith code is based off of a terrible person's book. It's like, and these people are just clinging to this idea, but just the mentalities that are out there are if you have a chance to become a creator on Star Wars right now, don't run away. there are some real people out there right now.
They are people.
You're just going like because you can't reason with it.
But there's good out there too, though. I mean, you had
there's great out there. There are more of us.
there's more
Right.
of yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I mean, that's what this like all of you out there and our TikTok and YouTube kind of friend group that's like keeps expanding, and it's really that whole More of Us bubble is growing. But it's like it's growing, but like there's all the incoming fire constantly. It's like being bombarded by Thrawn when you're on Lethal. It's like
See,
you just got your shield up, but yeah.
we're going history of the games here, right? And we've gone way back, and me, like I'm not involved in that. And
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting that we're in an age where this is a thing because, like, if we roll back the clock to when that vector graphics Star Wars game came out, I had strong opinions about Star Wars, and I wasn't gonna. If I voiced them, there wasn't going to be a debate. It wasn't going to be a clash. There weren't going to be camps. It was going to be me talking and a bunch of people being like, so anyways.
Yeah, and I wasn't online for all the the prequel era vitriol. I wasn't a part of that. I didn't until TikTok. I didn't really talk about Star Wars online.
Yeah, I was just going into junior high when the special editions were coming.
Oh. That was my first
remember,
George Lucas, what are you doing moment.
I remember everyone being so upset.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it until Return of the Jedi came out.
Still to that song that they added in, that's the only thing that bugs me is that song.
It is bad. It is
it's really bad.
I Return of the Jedi is one of my least favorite Star Wars movies of all time. I love Return of the Jedi, but all Star Wars movies are 10 out of 10 to me, and where we get into 10.9, Return of the Jedi is a 10.1. It's I love the movie, but man, that music number is not good, and I'm amazed they haven't taken. They're that has to be in the George Lucas contract. You're never allowed to not show the musical.
It could be, yeah. I mean, George was very insistent. There's a lot of changes now that I get because it makes sense for bridging the gap between the prequel graphics and the old school original trilogy. It makes it a little bit easier to watch consecutively without it being oh my god, this is 1977 what. And I get some of that. I get some of the changes. I get some some of the additions were just kind of well, because we can. But that one song, that's the only one that really just that and the Han shooting first thing. That's that's
I've always been on the I don't care who shoots first. It doesn't change anything. I think the back and forth and then moving Harrison Ford's head is stupid.
Well, adding McClunky, adding Greedo saying McClunky. It's what?
That the Jabba scene in A New Hope also not great. And then Harrison Ford,
that over the tail thing,
yeah. And it's also interesting because when that came out, when those special editions came out, I remember being really excited. I remember watching a behind the scenes thing about how they put that together and of Han doing the over Jabba's tail and it being the right age, me being the right age and everything. And I was like, that's so cool. Oh, we get to see Han talk, so it's and looking at it now, I look at it that is really ridiculous. But if I'm being honest with myself at the time, I really enjoyed it actually. And so I think that's also important to remember, right? What age were you when you saw it? What age was it meant for? What's the history going in, right? Because now I look back on the special editions and I'm like, oh god, I want to watch Hermes. But if I'm being honest, I went to see all of them when they came out in the theaters and I loved them.
We've got different
generations. My family
generations.
took me to see all of them.
Yeah, we got different generations, and that was part of my post today. Is each generation when a new thing comes out, that's going to be all the prequel haters now, the kids who grew up watching the prequels. That's kind of the louder voices. So now they're celebrated. You're going to find that same thing in the next 10 to 15 years with the sequels. Is
of course,
those kids are going to grow up, and it's going to be the same thing. And I'm super stoked that there's a new Rey Skywalker movie. But it's and again it's the same thing with the video games. What era did that nostalgia and what do you cling to? I've got another trailer here for another video game in a moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Harith brought up like the Old Republic MMO being clickbait. Like the trailers of the Old Republic MMO are very much not representative of that game, and I put hundreds of hours into the MMO, not as much as Galaxies, but the Old Republic MMO was like I played it a ton, and yeah, those cutscenes are super cool and super flashy and great to watch, but that's not what happens in the game at all. And I am convinced that the people who are obsessed with Darth Revan and the Old Republic, and they talk about the Old Republic cutscenes and trailers, I'm like, you didn't play that game. I know you didn't play that game because you're so obsessed with those cutscenes. If you played the game, you don't care about the cutscenes. You care about like the story that happened, and you care about like the really cool PvP stuff, like getting to play Hutball in the Old Republic. Like it's really cool. You didn't play that game. Stop acting like you played that game.
All right. Speaking of Dude Bros, I've got a trailer for this next one just because it's well known one. You'll understand why. It's Force Unleashed. And this one more than I think almost more than KOTOR sometimes gets the Dude Bros in a certain kind of way. But this is our introduction to Sam Witwer. And because Sam Witwer was Starkiller, right?
Yeah.
I didn't play the game, but okay. Here's a trailer.
This trailer's great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have done well, my apprentice.
Epic. Just epic.
It is such a good trailer, and it is a good game. Like I don't want to take away from the Force Unleashed. It is a good game. When I think of lightsaber games, like I would put like Jedi Knight, Jedi, Fallen Order Survivor, and Force Unleashed. Going back to all of them, Force Unleashed is like the worst of those games. It is really clunky. The Force kind of works when you want it to. It kind of grabs stuff randomly. It was cool. The Force powers, the do whatever you want aspect of it was pretty cool. But man, the Dude Bros ruined that game for me.
Explain for those that don't know.
So just like Starkiller is Darth Vader's apprentice, secret, Sith assassin apprentice that Palpatine doesn't know about, and he's just unbelievably overpowered. The trailer starts with him pulling a Star Destroyer out of the sky with the Force. Like it doesn't get more overpowered than that. And the story of the first game is fine. The story of the second game is there. It is. Hey, we gave him another lightsaber. Go cut things for another 3 hours.
The second one very much felt like this first game was successful. We need a sequel.
Yeah,
and
we need it before Christmas. Yeah, kind of like what happened to KOTOR 2, but KOTOR 2 was actually a playable, long-lasting game. There's something about Starkiller Galen Merrick that he has that Anakin Skywalker Darth Revan effect of it's just troubled young boys relate to him for some reason, and they think he's the greatest thing to happen to Star Wars, and anything that's not Starkiller sucks to them, and he should be canon. He's the only character they should have brought into canon, blah blah blah. I've seen with Jedi Survivor being, released and all that, and seeing a lot of the TikTok streamers playing through older Star Wars games, I've definitely seen a couple people going back to play The Force Unleashed and being like, man, this wasn't as good as I remember. And like, it's playable, it's fun, it's kind of goofy, but like I do think it is like the worst of the lightsaber games. Obi-Wan Kenobi being the worst, but
I was actually just okay, so super minor spoiler alert for Jedi Survivor, where you fight a Rancor in Jedi Survivor, and it's effing hard, like, whereas in Force Unleashed, you literally are running through a jungle full of Rancors and just like hopping on them and killing, like, one-shotting them. So yeah, it's a bit of a different vibe.
The Dude Bros are all about power levels. It's like power levels and yeah, it's there's new.
You know what I
the interesting thing
triggered both of you.
Oh no.
Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, well, I was going to say because the thing is what I remember from Force Unleashed. I mean, first of all, like, now the controls are clunky, but at the time, like, we hadn't had a game like that. Like we hadn't had that style of like, we hadn't had a game in that style with that snappy of controls, which now they feel clunky, but at the time it was like, wow, this feels great. I get to like go around and be a Jedi. Well, I guess a Sith. But the story, like, wasn't really about Starkiller. It was about the rebellion. Like, that's the thing to me, is like, that's what I remember, was that story was about the birth of the rebellion. And so, like, to take away from it about like, oh no, it's all about Starkiller and everything, it's like, no, it was actually about, if anything, it's about Vader, and it's about the birth of the rebellion. Like, so I don't know. To me, that's weird. I don't engage with the Dude Bros, but it's a weird take. It almost feels like, did you play the game or did you pay attention to the game? Like, because yeah, like, it's not about Starkiller, or until you get to the second game. And the second game, like I said, it just really felt tacked on.
Well, that's the thing about Dude Bros, is that they don't pay attention to story. It's like their opinions are based off of something entirely other than story itself, which is, it's
very surface level. It's very Starkiller can blow people up into smithereens and pull Star Destroyer out of the sky. That's why I like Star. And like, they think that Darth Revan is so cool because he has a purple and a red lightsaber and he wears a cool mask. And it's like, Revan is a Jedi. Like, don't ever forget that Revan being a Jedi, and he, like, and if you're, if you want to take, George Lucas as the Holy Grail, you got to take Drew Karpyshyn as the Holy Grail for the Old Republic. Drew Karpyshyn will tell you he's a Jedi. Like, there's no getting around that. He does not go the dark side, and those Dude Bros don't accept that. They don't get it.
Didn't he
way
write
over
the
their
Sith
heads.
code, from what I understand? That's what I saw.
I don't know.
Yeah,
the first time I remember seeing the Sith code was the Old Republic, so most likely yes. But yeah,
I know the frustration is real.
Yeah, it's like when I was thinking about it not that long ago, just kind of like some comments I had seen on TikTok, and people power leveling Star Wars, and I'm like, okay, like, and they get upset about Rey using Force lightning in Rise of Skywalker, and I'm like, okay, if we're gonna power level this stuff, let's go back to the original RPG. Let's go back to Knights of the Old Republic. You could pick between Force Choke and Force Lightning at like level 5. Like, when you learned you were a Jedi. Like, if we're going to power leveling, these are entry level skills. We're not talking about mind drain and energy drain that are higher level. We're not talking about kill all droids. We're talking about throwing out lightning is a basic level skill. So you got to get some consistency in here if you're going to talk about power levels.
The filters on TikTok where you get to choose between characters like this versus that, like the kind of knockout when they had recently, or like putting them in different tiers. You got like your kind of high tier, and then it kind of pyramids. is the amazing amount of comments you get. Like, just people will judge you. Like, you will get more hate from those videos than saying something at all. One of them was about Grievous, right? General Grievous, like that, and Vader. And it's like, do you realize majority of the time when you see Grievous on screen is him running away? Like, he's just constantly escaping. There is a whole like several minute thing of just him escaping on YouTube with that, and like okay, yeah, I mean, like he can be bad. If it was the 2003 Clone Wars, like before the Clone
where he
Wars
stomps
now,
on people,
where he's just like incredible, but like just the story itself, like he's just constantly like ditching his people to all to all blow up while he escapes and just runs away from Jedi. I mean, like, I pay attention to the story. Like, your brain is thinking power level Grievous, but like even when Obi-Wan Kenobi confronted him, Grievous ran away.
Yeah,
like that
but
whole
no,
scene.
he has 4 lightsabers. That means he's 4 times as strong as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, why is everybody 3 years old? Why is everybody online 3 years
Well,
old?
they say Star Wars is for kids, and it's just for people who.
It's just some people never grow past that. That's
Yeah.
All right. Going past Dude Bros. Getting into. I've got a trailer for Jedi Fallen Order, because we talked a bit about that. I'm in the middle of playing Survivor.
Since before we rush forward,
yeah,
just
please.
one game we haven't touched on that I want us to rewind a bit. We kind of skipped past was we talked about like prequel hate, some people, everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think though the prequels gave us one of the best video games in the arcade, and that was the Pod Racer game.
Yeah, I was gonna say Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was incredible.
Yes, it was,
there was
especially the arcade version in a giant
the two
motion control with the actual like throttle controls like you had in the movie. It was just I don't know. Did you ever play this one, Nick? Did you ever see this?
No.
This came out?
I remember. Okay. I remember what you're talking about, though. I mostly saw it on console, as far as seeing it. But
you can get it on Steam right now. Actually, like it's still available.
I want this.
It's hard to run on Steam.
This.
Yeah.
You can't get the arcade cabinet on Steam.
I want that. Now that you said it, I will not accept less.
I found out about the arcade much later, like kind of like when Racer Revenge had come out for PS2. I remember going to I used to do a lot of Dance Dance Revolution, and we went to this like Bollywood theater that was like, you kind of go there, see a movie, and then play DDR. And then one day they just got the like Episode 1 Racer cabinet, and I was like, no way this exists. And so I just played that for a ton of time. And that game's sense of speed still, I don't think has been matched. Like, that game is so fast, and all the other
it feels like you're just ripping around in a pod racer in this real high stakes. I just found one of on eBay one of the cabinets for $8,300 US. If you want to.
All right, send it here.
And let's all get them. We'll connect them up.
I got space for it right over there. It's I'm ready. Yeah. I will say that if I play it, that I will definitely be like Anakin in it. I'll be yelling like "Yippee!" and "Uh-oh!" and
no, you don't need to, because he does that
does it
anyways.
in the game.
It does, yes, it is.
But that's my job. How dare you?
Okay, I might be crazy.
Well,
my favorite. Okay, yes, I'm crazy, but
we all are.
This might make me more crazy. There is a pod racer in the game, piloted by Neva Key. He's this little tiny mouse guy, and he has a backwards pod racer. His cockpit is in the front, and his engines are behind him.
Okay.
He is listed in all of the like artwork books and everything, and his pod racer's there. I don't think he's in the movie. I have gone back through the pod racer scene like multiple times to look for him. I can't find him. And he's my favorite pod racer just because he's got the goofy backwards pod racer. And I don't think he's in the movie, because every other pod racer in that game is in the movie. And the cool thing with ILM is like every single pod racer has its own unique sound, and they brought all those sounds into the game. It's great, but Neva Key is missing, and it bugs me to this day. And I need my special edition of Episode 1 where they add him in.
No, Harith, I do not have thousands of dollars to drop on that, but if there's anybody out there who does
fake fan
who would like to buy that for me. I mean, if there is somebody who's willing to buy that for me, I want to talk to you about other things too. I got a lot of ideas.
It would be because the other thing was that, like, I mean, those old machines too. Because part of that pod racer game, like in the arcade, is it had a big screen, like, way bigger than you would have had at home, like at the time, which was part of that sense of speed and immersion and everything. But those old screens have horrible burn-in problems. So if you find one of those cabinets and buy it, the screen's probably junk. Like, so yeah.
There is
another $8,000 to fix it. I don't know.
I'm just realizing there is one Star Wars game that I've mastered. So it's do you remember Jedi Challenges, the headset that came out that you put your phone in, and you've got the AR, like you've got the lightsaber, and then through AR, like you've got the lightsaber blade, and you battle a bunch of people. You can also play holo
I never
chess,
played this.
and
I know what you're talking about.
And there's the battleground. I was really big into it, so much so where I was on like the forums, talking about it with people, and then even got like contacted by the actual like company to possibly. This is how far down the rabbit hole I went. But so much so where like there's like a bunch of levels where you basically this yellow line comes up when you have to block, and then you do that, and of course there's levels, like you go against everything from Kylo to Vader to Darth Maul, and like if you beat the game, like the last master, the last person is like incredibly hard, like because everything just goes so fast, and if your blade is like slightly like out of sync with your actual hand, like because it sometimes gets a little wonky, it's nearly impossible. But I went through, and when you master it, you can take the blocks off. And so I went back through, I memorized every person's combination. And thankfully, because I'm I like to be active. So this was like right up my alley, like to actually be like, dripping sweat while you're doing this. I went through and I beat the entire game again, every level, even the master, without the blocks. And like, yeah, that's a whole other level of nerd that I hadn't really gone down.
That's
with video games
dedication.
before.
I appreciate that.
I mean, it was a dark time in my life, so I it was a good time to concentrate on that,
But
just
before we get to, go ahead.
Okay, well, I was gonna just something you were saying, Nick, that you wanted to be active, and I didn't even think of this, but this is a Star Wars game, and it just came back to me that you want to get up and be active. Xbox Connect Star Wars dance
off. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo.
Oh my God!
Speaking of dark times in Star Wars,
have you played this, Nick?
No, I have not.
This is like the holiday special of video games.
It is. So you remember the Xbox Connect, the motion sensor bar, and they had like, and then there were like the dance games. They were like Rock Band, but you had to try to do dance moves.
I've seen video.
Well, there's a Star Wars version.
Yeah.
And it's.
I mean, active and dancing
else.
And Star Wars.
I know.
That's us.
I think. This needs to be. You need to live stream this, Nick. You need to. Yeah.
Okay. I will. Basically it'll be like me like live streaming just all the terrible stuff. Like everybody's like gaming like Jedi Survivor right now, and here I am just like on Connect, just like jumping around.
Xbox Connect
and Yoda stories.
I mean I think there's watchability there. I think it'd be very entertaining.
Oh yeah.
Especially as a dancer, I would get frustrated on the actual gameplay. I'm like, that's not on rhythm. Like what is this?
See, yeah, there's other modes in Star Wars Connect. There's like a lightsaber one. I think there's a pod racing one. All of it is awful.
Yeah, it's just a bad game all
it's
around.
Just, it is terrible.
I've only seen video of like the dancing thing. I'm like, what in the? I didn't know if that was fan made or like that actually existed, but it actually exists. Okay.
I've played it. It absolutely exists.
I have played
terrible.
It is awful.
Yep.
I played all of them. I didn't play them a lot because they're all terrible. I played I'm Han Solo because man, is it hilarious.
It was a dark time. before the Cal Kestis.
I mean, it was. I mean, that was kind of a that would have been a dark time for Star Wars games. I'm trying to think. Did we have any?
No, it went Force Unleashed, Force Unleashed 2, nothing really else, and then Star Wars Connect. Like the original Battlefronts had already come and gone. Those are like PS2, Xbox. So Xbox 360 really only had Force Unleashed. That would have been PS4. Lego Force Awakens.
The Lego games. That's right. You know, I guess we've always had, since the Lego Star Wars games have all been solid. You know, like they are what they are. Like
they're not for me.
No,
but I'm
they're
glad
not
they
gonna be
exist.
for everyone. Yeah, and they are exactly
the Skywalker
what
Saga
Yeah.
Lego games. I've enjoyed that one. I played some of the a little bit of the earlier ones and didn't care for them as much.
I mean, they're Lego games, and they're really, and they're kids Lego games,
Yeah.
right? But they've all been good enough. They've been solid, but yeah, they don't get me.
They're
excited
silly. They're
about gaming.
fun.
Like
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like other Star Wars games, until we got Fallen Order.
Yeah, I mean, the one that we haven't talked about that was my big Star Wars game was Star Wars Galaxies.
Oh right.
Oh, that's yes.
That is the game. So that was, before Steam, tracked your hours, there was an input command to see how long you had been on Star Wars Galaxies, / playtime. I was at 3,300 hours in Star Wars Galaxies. And man, I still have I have an emulated server that I play on now because the game's no longer active, but there's tons of people who've remade the servers. It's my favorite Star Wars game. I really want a sequel to that game or something similar to it because it's really nothing. It's like nothing else. It is just living in Star Wars.
What was the game?
It was an MMO. So World of Warcraft style, Final Fantasy 14, Old Republic, but it was a little bit different because it wasn't entirely combat focused. Like you didn't have to shoot or cut anything. You could simply be a doctor. You could be like a trader. You could be a politician. You could set up towns and stuff like that. You could build spaceships and just sell the spaceship parts. You could build armor and clothes, stuff like that. You could be a hairstylist. You could do a ton of stuff in this game. It went through a bunch of different phases as far as gameplay style goes. I liked all of them, and I played until the game was shut down. But, in the very first iteration of the game, becoming a Jedi was a huge task. And basically it was a big risk because it took place during, the original trilogy, and there weren't any Jedi. And so if you became a Jedi, you became a target for like bounty hunters, and the bounty hunters were players. And if you died as a Jedi, you lost the character. So you could die as many times you wanted in the game, but if you became a Jedi and you died, you lose the character. But it was such a cool game because like the economy was driven by the players. Like if you wanted to buy like a certain speeder, you'd have to find someone that sold the speeder, and then you'd go to their shop on Naboo and buy it from them or one of their vendors. And it was so cool. They added tons of expansions. They had an expansion that had a whole flight simulator in it, the Jump to Lightspeed expansion. You had to have someone build your spaceship, build your parts. You could loot some parts, but most of the stuff was built by other players. They added, once the prequels started coming out, they added more like Revenge of the Sith style content. They had some Knights of the Old Republic content added once those games came out. It was a great game. It still is great. If you can find a way to get into one of the emulated servers, it's worth it. It looks old, but it is still a ton of fun because it's just living in Star Wars, and it's great.
I have to go look. I'm gonna have to go look at right after this some video just to look that up.
It's still a blast. Just like I said, it's just a good way to like live
and live
Julie
play
asked, could you be a nerf
MMOs.
Yes, you can.
Can be a
There
nerf
was a
herder.
beastmaster profession, and you could go out and tame like animals out there. So yes, you could herd nerfs.
So I know Julia
Yep.
was a joke, but yeah, go be a nerf herder. I believe in you.
And it's online, so you're always just talking to people. There's people just hanging outside of Mos Eisley and the cantina and stuff like that. You can go to all the different locations. You know, you can go to the Sarlacc pit. You can go to the Crate Dragon skeleton. You know, all those places you can go. You can go to the resort or whatever it was, the homestead on Naboo. This was our first look into Dantooine, which was really cool. You could go to Dantooine. The Death Watch bunker was there before Death Watch was kind of introduced into the Clone Wars. So yeah, just such a cool game.
How big are the player bases on the current servers?
They're pretty big.
Yeah.
The SWG Legends is like the NGE or New Game Experience, like the last version of the game, and that is pretty busy. Like you go to Mos Eisley and there are a ton of people hanging out there. There's people always running kind of like the raids and stuff like that. They've added Bespin, which was not in the original game. The people who've been kind of hosting these have made their own stuff. There's new. They've added new vehicles, new armor, stuff like that. You can get an apartment on Bespin if you want. That was not in the original game at all. So, and there's people who do it like they didn't like the combat upgrade or the new game enhancement, so they do basically vanilla galaxies. There's people who do just up to jump to light speed. You know, any version of that game you wanted is available, and almost all of the emulated servers are really populated.
I didn't realize that because they shut that down in like 2011.
Yeah, I was there when
Officially,
they shut it down.
Yeah.
Oh wow. All right, we've got I've got Jedi Fallen Order trailer here. Kind of jumping into now the last few years. Jedi Fallen Order came out at a good time because of pandemic. I definitely played this through a couple times because, you know, when you're a dance instructor and a pandemic hits, you are no longer a dance instructor. and when you literally cannot go anywhere, you know, you got Jedi Fallen Order. And thankfully I just moved into this place, and you know, like I just gotta like set up everything so it could be a nice little like game area. But let's take a look at the trailer. Here we go.
We've lost. The Empire's hunting Jedi survivors. Now, they know who you are.
I can't change the past,
You trespass, Jedi.
but I'm done hiding.
Cal Kestis.
We will always struggle.
It's the choice to keep fighting that makes us who we are.
So we're finally at a place where like I've played the game too, so just not as expert. I always play story mode. That's how terrible I am. Like I want to enjoy it, but I don't want to die over and over again. I would just get frustrated. I've got no qualms in playing story mode.
I was actually kind of curious about that. I mean, it would be jumping because we're jumping ahead again if we go to Jedi Survivor. If you're playing it for the story, have you tried any of the Force tears, or have you gotten?
No, I didn't know about it until the last couple days.
Okay,
like on what that
they're,
is.
Some of them are
They're brutal.
really hard, like really hard. Yeah.
Oh no, Force tears.
It's like,
yeah, no, I've done 3 of them. Sorry, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I've done.
Some of
3
them
Force
are
tears.
some of them are so where it's like, oh, it's like 1,000 B1 droids, right? And it's like, okay, dual blade it and just kill them all. But like some of them are really hard, and
Double Rancor is something.
double Rancor is special.
And of course,
I died
yeah.
a lot doing that one.
For
Yeah,
Jedi
okay,
Survivor,
sorry,
I know
jumped ahead again.
people are still playing Jedi Survivor, so we won't go into like story stuff. Just like gameplay things. But if Fallen Order, Cal Kestis is still alive, so ta-da.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't.
He
I know,
doesn't
and,
die. He makes it to the sequel.
Yeah.
and honestly, I don't want to. I think we can talk about the end of Fallen Order without talking specifics and just talk about the impact of that, because
without the actual
there are still some people
characters.
There are still some people who haven't finished it, and
Correct.
the end of that game,
I know Sarah
the
has
last
finished it.
the last confrontation in that game was just, I was not expecting that. I mean,
Yeah.
I enjoyed the game. It was really good. Played through it all. I was like really into it. And then the end, and I was like, this isn't just a good game. This is like really good Star Wars, and like, and the impact of that scene and what happens. It just, the
They
level
did it
of
really
production
well.
and story. Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
It was definitely out of left field, and it felt right, kind of where you were. But obviously, it wasn't hinted at all in the story. I really, really liked Jedi Fallen Order a lot. I enjoyed Survivor. My takeaway is I do think Fallen Order is the better game.
So far, I would agree.
There's not. I don't want to get into, because I thoroughly enjoyed Survivor. To give a background, Harriet said, Chase's speedrun during the Fallen Order stream was impressive. I didn't speedrun the game. The speedrun now the record is 30 minutes. I did it in 6 hours. But I was very much Jedi Grandmaster. I need to be able to beat every single boss without getting hit. And I accomplished that. And there are moments of Survivor where I'm like, y'all changed way too much. And it's kind of a janky game. It's a very janky game. It's still a ton of fun. But yeah, I mean, I have never been crazy about the Dark Souls style game. I've definitely played through a lot of those games and don't like most of them. I really like Sekiro and Bloodborne, which kind of, I think, fit more into that Fallen Order kind of feel than like the actual Dark Souls games. But so I was kind of like hesitant when that game was kind of announced as being a Dark Souls game. And I was like, I don't want lightsaber Dark Souls, but it really does work for the game. And I think just kind of how we play games today, I think it really works, kind of even looking at stuff like Jedi Academy and Jedi Outcast and The Force Unleashed. It really works. And I think it does allow for these impactful lightsaber battles versus like wildly swinging, and it definitely hit, but you're just swinging a lightsaber wildly. I love both games, but yeah, Fallen Order just was really special, kind of getting through it the first time, and just like everything that happens in that game is so memorable. Like every interaction on every planet, the stuff with Marin, the stuff with Seer and Grease. Like Grease is such a great character.
Oh, I love Grease.
Greasy money, baby. That was like the Mantis crew. I mean, this is something that Star Wars has just been like knocking out of the park recently with the Bad Batch, the Ghost Crew, the Mantis crew, like these little groups that they've kind of put together, and just how well they work together and how interesting they are. So like,
ever since Rebels, they've been having some great crews.
Yeah, it's great. I would say, like, if you loved the story of Fallen Order, you will be rewarded in full with Survivor. Will you like every decision they make in that game? Maybe, maybe not. I think it's 100% worth playing.
And it's crazy that they've made the game in such a way where it's like the first real game that's actually canon.
Yes.
The story fits in.
But Battlefront 2 was canon.
It was
the Iden
okay.
Versio. Yeah,
Okay.
Iden Versio is canon.
So this is then the second kind of series with that.
Squadrons was after Fallen Order, so yeah.
Yeah.
Also, we talked about like your companions, with Seer and Marin and Grease and everybody, but like as a villain, Trilla in Fallen Order,
so
like
good.
So good, like it just, and I thought it was in the trailer. I thought it was interesting. They opened with the Ninth Sister too, because like she's just such a presence, like and playing her in that game, I don't know. And I mean, I'm not a Souls-like player. I'm maybe someone who's like a Dark Souls expert or plays a lot of those games probably was like, oh, that boss was a cakewalk, but she killed me so many times.
Mechanically, the second game has questionable elements to me.
Well, I'm talking about Ninth Sister in the first game. In
the first
Fallen
game.
Order.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, no, not in the second game. Not in the second game. No.
That was not a good time. But no, I something about the first game was the three main bosses. So Ninth Sister, Terran, and Second Sister, is they all play in a very specific way. Like Terran is all about dodging and attacking and getting his meter down. Trilla is all about dodging everything she does, and Ninth Sister is kind of a combination of the two. Like studying those boss fights for way too long, I really learned to appreciate how they designed those boss fights in that game. And just like, yeah, Ninth Sister is a super fun fight. Especially they just give you the double-bladed lightsaber and you're like, ooh, yeah. And it's not the way to go against her. But yeah, man, I really enjoy Fallen Order. Put a lot of time into that game. Too much time into that game.
I mean, me too, only because like the second time I played through, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do the thing where I'm gonna go get the double-bladed lightsaber right away. Oh man, when you do,
I did that by accident. I didn't even know that I wasn't doing it. I didn't know that it was there. I just was like, ooh, Dathomir. I want to check out Dathomir. Like
that is very much you. That is very much like
I went to Dathomir at my first playthrough. I was like, ooh, we're going to Dathomir.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's John. I will say, Survivor. One of the things since it's come out is that there's been so many bugs to it, and I ran across one of those this week, and it took me a couple days to figure out a fix for it, but it got me stuck where like Marin's supposed to do a thing and doesn't do a thing, so I'm just like not doing the thing, can't go anywhere, and trying to go on the forums to figure that out.
See, this is I've been seeing it in my news feeds, and I've been just reading all about how the PC port's broken and all the bugs and this and that. I guess I've just been really, really lucky. I've had a couple of crashes, and like I've had one or two bugs where I had to fast travel to get it to reset, and that's it. Like
I was mostly lucky on the PC. I definitely got to a point where something, I don't know if there's like, I'm not a super technical person, but I don't know if there's like a memory leak happening where basically every time I restarted, the frame rate was dipping during a boss fight to the point where it was like a slideshow and I basically had to restart my computer. There were some for me, like I didn't have any game breaking bugs happen. I didn't have any crashes. I did have some repeatable bugs and glitches in some of the boss fights. There was one in Ninth Sister where basically Cal just starts teleporting, and that's not a force ability he has.
I was about to say,
my
that's
knowledge.
Force power.
Well done. I mean,
it's like it's Force Kick from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
It's a free force power. What are you complaining about? Come on.
He doesn't teleport in a convenient way. I'll say that. There was one part in the last boss fight where they do a lot of these like cutscene style attacks.
Yeah.
And he did it at just the right spot and just sent Cal flying off into the abyss. And I was like, I hate this game.
I can't wait.
I think a lot of that stuff has been ironed out at this point, and especially if you're playing on console, I think it's a smoother experience. But yeah, the game is good. I always feel bad because I am really critical of the game, and that really comes from a point of me putting so much into the first game and like literally spending days in the battle grid with Trilla and being like, I need to know every single frame of every single animation, you know exactly when to do perfect dodges, exactly when to which parries cancel out which animations and stuff like that, like really dumb stuff that no one needs to ever bother with. And then going into Survivor, and so much stuff has changed, and they don't really allow for a lot of that stuff. And I'm like, bummer. But it is a wild ride. There's lots of cool moments. Like I said, if you love Fallen Order, you will be sweetly rewarded, very sweetly rewarded.
The humor in Survivor, like just all of the just walking around and listening to like the battle droids talking, and like they say some really funny stuff.
Survivor has given us, you know, The Rise of Skywalker gave us the greatest Star Wars character in Babu Frick.
Hey!
And I didn't think Babu Frick could be topped as the greatest Star Wars character of all time, but he has been topped by Scuba Steve, who is the greatest Star Wars character.
I haven't gotten there yet.
You're gonna
love
so
Scuba.
good. I won't say anything. When you meet Scuba Steve, he's so good. What's so great is I was really getting frustrated with the game. There was some points where like the performance was really tanking, and like just like fights. Like I am like what we were talking about earlier is like, oh yeah, remember when we played games at 15 frames a second? When we're talking about a game that is very dependent on like frame windows for parries and dodges, like I don't need the game to be buttery smooth at all times, but when it gets slideshowy and enemies are teleporting and you're missing parries because you can't see their animations, like it becomes a frustrating experience. And at a point where I was like, I don't know if I even want to finish this game, I met Scuba Steve, and I was like, I'm in love with the game all over now.
Okay, now that's what I need. Now I know when I meet that character that like I'm ready.
You are gonna love Scuba.
Scuba is so good.
So good.
And he had so. Have you gotten to where you're kind of? Where are you in the game?
Okay. Without giving any spoilers, I'm on Jeddah, and I'm trying to go get to a place to help out some people.
Great, love it.
Okay. Yeah.
So
that was the least spoilery as I can get.
So Pyloon Saloon on Kobo.
Yeah.
Grease's Cantina. Like you know that there's like activities to do there. Scuba has his own activity in the saloon, and it is so satisfying to watch the progress of that activity. And he's just such a great character, and every interaction with him is golden. Like he doesn't miss. Like everyone was focusing on Turgle when the game came out. Like no. Turgle's cool because he's voiced by Invader Zim. That's what makes him cool. Scuba Steve is just cool.
All right.
Also, Survivor has the best boss in any Star Wars game ever in the Imperial base.
Yes.
And I don't want to spoil it.
No,
I have the hot take of it has the worst boss.
And the best boss.
And the best boss. The best boss.
You will know when you fight the best boss. You'll know. And it is fantastic.
That was another moment because that whole sequence is not, I wouldn't say a highlight of the game, but that moment is like they get this. They get Star Wars.
It has a lot of, so you can just tell there's a lot of love like by people who really are into Star Wars who worked on that game. And there's another Easter egg. I don't know if either of you, it's a Titanic reference. It's not an official secret. But it's like, so like once you find the ability to identify all the secrets, it's not a treasure. It's nothing like that. It's an actual Easter egg that you have to find. And it's a reference to Titanic, to the painting scene. I'm judging by your faces.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
I don't know what the thing is. I don't think, but I know Titanic wise what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, I didn't see it. I didn't see it personally, but I did see a video of it, and I was like, "That's good. That's really good."
Yeah. I mean, that one I kind of feel like it's an Easter egg, and like, okay, so if you don't want to know, plug your ears for the next 30 seconds. But there's a place in the game where you can find a bunch of battle droids standing around a Mogu posed like, and they're all painting this Mogu.
I saw
like they're French girls.
Mutual Jedi Star Killer posted a video about that, and I had to watch it because I was curious, and it takes forever to get there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've kept to. We're now 2 hours in. This is now the longest. We're talking about the history of Star Wars games. Like,
there's a lot, and there's so many we haven't touched Battlefront. We haven't
No.
touched Rogue Squadron. We talked a little bit about Rogue Squadron.
But
Yeah. We didn't talk about like the movie games, like Phantom Menace on
tie-in
PS1,
games.
Revenge of the
Yeah.
Sith on PS2. Republic Commando was another like fantastic, like that, man. Like it's just, even as like first person shooters go, that was just an amazing game. We didn't talk about the bad ones like Masters of Terras Kasi.
Oh my god!
Where you could play as, was it the Tusken Raider whore?
Oh,
Sometimes.
my god, Masters of Terras Kasi. That's
well, okay. What's so great about Masters of Terras Kasi is that it has leaked into other parts of Star Wars. Like in Star Wars Galaxies, like the hand-to-hand profession was the Terras Kasi profession, and then in Solo, Kira says she knows Terras Kasi, and I'm like, yes, that game sucks. There was Star Wars Demolition, which was like a Twisted Metal Star Wars game. Another really terrible one, Super Bombad Racing, which is like the big head kiddie race, like kart racer they did. Man, Yoda Stories was another bad PC one. It was like a top-down puzzler platformer type of thing. Really bad. Yeah, there are some bad Star Wars games out there, unfortunately.
I mean, thankfully, there's enough good ones to relive.
Oh yeah, the good ones. Yeah. The lucky thing is the good ones outweigh the bad, and like many times over.
Shine through.
Maybe we'll have to come back and do like a worst of the worst.
Oh god.
Make one of you play through some
or
of
just it. or do some Twitch playthroughs of some of these like really bad ones.
I'm waiting for my several $1,000 pod racing game.
Yes,
that's a good one.
That one's good. That one's
great.
I know,
but
I'm just saying I'm waiting for it. Whatever donor is out there, I'm.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that is just a stinker of a game. There were some like kid-focused Clone Wars games that I'm sure if you were a kid, Naboo Starfighter, terrible game. That was like right off the heels of Rogue Squadron. And it was so crazy. Like Rogue Squadron had the unlockable N1 Starfighter because it was right before the Phantom Menace came out. And then when Phantom Menace came out, they released Naboo Starfighter, and it was terrible. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like what we had a good version of this. Why?
You did it well already.
Yeah.
You just had to do more of it, and you didn't.
Red 5. Yeah, I definitely. If you think of more like video game topics, we can definitely come back and have a good time on that. So next week, everyone is going to next Wednesday is the day before Return of the Jedi's 40th anniversary. So we're going to do a whole Return of the Jedi panel talking about Return of the Jedi, the good, the bad, and the wonderful murder bears. Gotta love our adorable murder bears. I know, we all want one. But I'm looking forward to that, and especially for those that were at Star Wars Celebration, there was a 40th anniversary panel, and we can talk a little bit about that. Maybe I can see if I can pull some of my video from that. But seeing Warwick Davis and who is it?
Anthony Daniels.
Anthony Daniels go back and forth. They're sitting next to each other. Oh man, those are a pair. They've been doing this for a long time. They've been doing the great banter. But
did you guys go to the theater to see Return of the Jedi recently?
Yeah. Sarah and I went, and just to be in a big theater again and see it on the big screen. I spent so much of the time looking at the people in back, because it was in such like big and clear, like in Jabba's palace. I was looking at all the different all the different scoundrels.
So funny. This was my 4th time seeing Jedi in the theaters. On the big screen, I should say, because I saw it special editions. I went to the Force Awakens opening party, which was every single movie in the theaters, and then you went to a different theater to go see Force Awakens. That was a long day. And then I went to Philadelphia to see Return of the Jedi with an orchestra, which was really great. And then saw it for the 40th anniversary. I'm like, man, I love the movie. It is one of my least favorite Star Wars movies. I've seen it in the theaters so many times now, and it's always been a great experience. It is a fun movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Battle Above Endor is fantastic.
It
One of the
came
best
out.
ones in
It
Star
came out when
Wars.
I was 4 years old, so I was kind of the perfect age for that.
Mhm.
When it came out, it was my favorite Star Wars movie for a little bit. I mean, there was only 3 to choose from, but
Right.
but and then as I grew up, that became Empire. But that's just because I got older and more bitter over time. See the darkness.
I got
in the
older.
world.
There's
and
also
A New Hope
could also-
became my favorite. Just like
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
it's such a great movie.
it is.
Also, the best Star Wars movie and your favorite Star Wars movie don't have to be the same
That's
thing.
true.
Oh yeah,
That's
Rogue
true.
One's the best.
Right?
Rogue One's
Yeah.
objectively. There's no debating it. There's no debating this. It's objectively the best. But
Welcome
it's not my
to the
favorite.
internet.
Yeah.
My opinion is the objective standard. Yeah, that's basically what you hear. Again, if you want to become a Star Wars creator, don't. If I could turn back time, I would have chosen. I don't know. Nah, I'm good. Yeah.
Pod ones just came in asking if we hadn't talked about Battlefront 2's campaign yet.
We didn't talk
It's
about
like-
Battlefront at all.
We
We've
didn't
Yeah.
even
way
get to
more video
Battlefront
games
yet.
than
Battlefront.
Battlefront.
Like,
The Battlefront games were great. I don't want to gloss over it. The new ones are also really good. I'd say that the most Star Wars feeling games are the new Battlefront games. The sounds, the visuals. When you're on Endor and fighting on Endor, it feels like it. So props to those games. I mean, I remember hooking up joysticks to see if I could get it to work with the ships in Battlefront in 2005. They're great games. But no, there's way too much to talk about besides
So
Battlefront.
they have to be their own Battlefront panel.
You know.
Yeah. But I appreciate both of you being on. Of course, like I would love to have you both back, and for whatever topics you feel like you want to talk about. There's always so much. But again, if you ever have like topics you in the chat that you want to see some of your friends talk about, let me know so I can egg them on and make them do things. But so as far as socials are concerned, Chase, where can we find you again?
You can find me at forwardintotheblack on TikTok and Twitch. TikTok, I'm usually talking about Star Wars and making fun of myself and Star Wars and talking about spaceships and talking about Star Citizen and the mess that is right now.
oh man.
3 months unplayable. Love that game.
Yeah.
And on Twitch, you can find me every once in a while streaming Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen, mostly Elite Dangerous now because Star Citizen is in fact still they just released 3.19 today. I have to check and see if that's playable, but it hasn't been playable. I hope you like teleporting right back to your bed.
3.19 added more stuff. I don't know how it's going to be more playable.
Oh, looks like
Anyways, right,
yeah.
that was it.
10 years, $500 million later.
Woo! Looks like Luke wants a Battlefront 2 panel. That's what.
Battlefront 2 panel.
We'll see. We'll see. Apparently,
It's a good game.
There's hesitation.
I don't want to. Yeah.
John, where can we find you?
I mean, mostly you can't, but yeah, Fridays you can catch my voice playing No Man's Sky on Blink Games.
That's on Twitch.
And yeah, or if you want to follow me on Instagram, John Ross Lewis, it's mostly pictures of my cats.
I mean, I tag John a lot because of all the photos. They're basically
I take a lot of photos of Nick.
John, Julie, or Sarah that are taking photos of me.
We're all on the internet because of the cats, right? Like that's how we got here.
Yeah.
Not me. I needed to see cats though.
Oh, my cat's asleep.
But yeah, again, next week we've got Return of the Jedi panel, and that should be fun. Going full nostalgia, 40 years of that. Again, Chase, John, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in the chat. For those of you at home, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because that always helps. And until next week, this is Fulcrum saying, Fulcrum out.
Thank you.
Thanks.